This evening, I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, and to share a few final thoughts with you, my countrymen. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Yes. Tony Caravan live for another edition, Saturday, April 24th. In the calendar year 2021. It might be fitting that I had decided yesterday to use the Cyclops from the movie Kroll in my title card when this eye is in extreme pain. I don't know what I did to it. I must have scratched it in the middle of the night or something along those lines. That said, I'm going to read to you the brief description of the show. This is another flow of consciousness, like many of my shows and my books. The description reads as follows. I realize that I am a man out of time, and that these broadcasts are falling mostly on deaf ears, if any eyes and ears at all. But they shall continue in the hope that at least one person will wake up to the reality that has befallen upon us by the corporatocracy. And of course, I've got links to my locals channel, my website, TonyCaravanLive.com, and great solar stuff. I am also wearing the classic shirt today. You don't know what you don't know, which you can get at TonyCaravanLive.com. As you can see, Eyes Without a Face has taken over the bandana, and I guess we might as well just take a quick look at the
Weekend weather.
It's Saturday, so we already missed Friday, but we woke up this morning in the former United States, mid-Atlantic states, to 36 degrees Fahrenheit. It's somewhat clear out there now, but it's supposedly going to be cloudy later on in the day. I apologize for the glassy eye. Hope I can make it through this show. The high today will be 63 degrees, the overnight 46. Sunday, 61 degrees, and the overnight 34 degrees, which, because of my location along the Appalachian Mountains, it'll probably be freezing or 0 degrees Celsius. And Monday, it's looking like we're going to get, the overnights are going to be a little bit better. And further down the line, I'm hoping they maintain themselves at a seasonal weather. But that's hard to say, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I received a thing from an editor at one of the major, one of the top 5 social media sites, one of the ones for a more professional site as opposed to a dopamine hit site, asking me to, in fact, I could read it to you. We just pull it up. On the title card, it says, each to their own fate. And Krull, while an older movie in the kind of a sci-fi fantasy movie, I recommend reading that. Well, this particular editor had said, apart from talking about the other thing that has been affecting us for the past year, says that to prepare for the obstacles ahead, notably climate change and its effects on the way we live, this other individual argues businesses, even rivals, will need to collaborate even more in the coming years. What do you think of this approach? Do you think collaboration? How do I respond to something like that? I mean, my response has been in my videos, which I have actually placed on that particular, shared them on that site. Obviously, the editor never read them. I may write something for the sake of it, but, just to freak them out, I guess. What I just can't understand is that how people at this point, after over a decade of seeing the truth that the earth is actually cooling and has been cooling, and that none of the things that have been spoken of by Gore or any of these other, the sky is falling people have come to fruition, and that it just gets worse and worse each year. I showed you the snow we had just about 2 days ago. I viewed videos by, I'm trying to get my chair organized. Videos by other gardeners and farmers from years ago, several years ago, talking about how the last several years have been colder and we've been planning later. Winter comes quicker and summer comes slower. Almost not even having springs. We get these little weeks or days, a couple days, it gets hot. And suddenly everybody, oh, look, see? But it's like the days that it's warm are fewer and fewer in between. I've addressed this issue so many times that I really, I'm almost puzzled, to say the least. Befuddled would be a better word. Dumbfounded. Now I sound like that guy Lionel, who keeps searching and choosing for more words to describe a state of being. But yeah, it's definitely
it's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
It's crazy. And I wonder if these people are just, is that it? Is that why they want to legalize it? Just keep everybody, totally out of touch.
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
I don't know. I've turned off the chat and I've turned off comments, and I will keep it that way from here on in. If that bothers people, that's so be it. I don't want any diversions. I'm going to use this handkerchief. Like I say, this eye is bothering the hell out of me. I don't want to overly put eye drops in it, but eye drops are upstairs. I should have brought them down. It's very annoying. Hopefully I didn't do any permanent damage. That's how I feel. And oddly enough, I have the Cyclops on the title card. It's crazy.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
Yeah, well, I don't have an important announcement to make, but my eye is burning like crazy. I don't know why. So, we're going to talk a little bit about this each to their own fate idea. I want to continue, excuse the facial expressions. I mean, this will eventually just, all things will pass. It's just, it's one of those things. And it's as if the eye is tearing and it's causing my nose a little bit. The human body is trying to heal itself. So we'll just have to see if it can do that, But obviously I want to continue these discussions that we're going to continue. Like I say, whether anyone watches them or not is no longer of a concern of mine, because like yesterday, for example, I basically did an entire 2-hour live show and there were 0 viewers. And the one viewer that showed up later on was myself, because I watched it upstairs, the replay. And after I watched the replay, I noticed it said 1 view. So they were somehow counting the fact, because I was using, I guess, a TV app to watch YouTube. So I was I was the announcer, and I was the only viewer. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. But like I said, these themes will probably be themes that were in my latest book, which I don't have the light on through here, which I could do, I guess, if you'd like, through the jackery. Is this what you want? There we go. It lights things up a little bit better so you can see Codex. Now remember, this is charged. Currently, it can be charged through solar, and that's something I sell. It's great solar stuff. And there, of course, is Codex, the book. I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Bob soda with a little bit of Hansen's Diet Black Cherry thrown in. And once again, I cut the top off of a 2-liter bottle. You can see so I was able to just put some ice cubes directly in it. The downfall with this is that the ice cubes want to come out. And that is unfortunate. Also, so the tax farm cows are now on top of eyes without a face. Anyway, let's get into it. I didn't get out of bed today till about 5 o'clock, which is, for me, I'm usually out of bed 3:30, 4:30. So it was 5 something when I rolled out of bed, maybe later. Maybe it was 5:30. I mean, I was up, kind of. But even though the cat was bothering me, I didn't get out. It's 6:58 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right now. And like I say, it's 36 degrees outside. A month after spring began. Closer to the Mason-Dixon line than anything else. I mean, I'm not living in the north. And I've said this before, we have 4 seasons here, or we used to, growing up. I don't know how old I look to you, but I've been around for quite a long time. And I find myself, as I mentioned, to be a man out of time. When I wrote that phrase down, I thought, two things: a man out of time, being a man, out of like this time, but also maybe a man out of time, as if time in an hourglass is, coming down. And I think our whole society is running out of time. I talk about this mass insanity. I talk about the corporatocracy. I do the things with the hands, pulling the strings of the politicians and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how many videos, live videos, 2-hour videos, consecutive videos in a row that I've done 7 days a week. They're approaching perhaps 80. I don't know. I've repeated certain themes, but other shows have focused on specific things, but they just go in one ear and out the other. Of the few people that watch them, and it's questionable how long a view is. If it's just somebody who out of curiosity clicked on it, looked at the guy and go like, that's weird, and then turned and changed it. There's really no other show, and I call it a show because it is a show. It's a broadcast. There's really no other show on the internet quite like this one. Gets this much in depth into these issues and deals with the truth. But I'm constantly battling YouTube and their ideologues who control, their censorship board. They accuse you of the very things that they're guilty of. That's how it works. And other social media do the exact same thing. They accuse people of the very things they themselves are guilty of. Right? They don't fact check, and they use fact checking organizations that are documented. You could do this right now. Documented to be sponsored and paid for by people, organizations, NGOs, foundations that are slanted ideologically and have predetermined outcomes, should I say, for whatever topic that comes their way. The Morning Show with Tony C. So what do you do in a society? Because we know there no longer is a United States. The United States has fallen. This is the former United States of America. And as I repeatedly say, why? Because we have irreconcilable differences. All you have to do anyone has to do is take a look around, talk to a relative in your same household, a coworker, somebody you see at a checkout counter, or a friend. And you will see that the differences are irreconcilable differences. These are the types of issues they have created, this duality, this polarity that is, people are so diametrically opposed to one another ideologically that there's irreconcilable differences. Any divorce court judge would see this clearly. I mean, without question, it would be an open and shut case, as they say. Divorce granted, irreconcilable differences. I apologize for you doing this. But there's really just no other choice. I mean, on one side, you got people like this.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
And it's kind of true, isn't it? I mean, mine is but actually the bodily fluids part seemed to have come true last year, So I don't know.
Go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I've added some new sound effects for this show.
Your papers, please.
Of course, that one's an older one. But some of the new ones are... I just have a quickie...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Taken from one of my old radio shows. So... Yeah, the reality on the ground is irreconcilable differences. Western civilization has fallen. The U.S. of A. is no longer exist. Our financial system is in a total state of disarray. Just for the sake of it, even though this doesn't mean much to people, let's look at the Bitcoin value today. It's down to 49,000. Remember, it was $62,000 per Bitcoin just about a week ago. So there's obviously something going on there. Is that something being dealt with? Excuse me. Jeez. I don't really have a cold. So is that something being done by, and that irritated my eye, blowing my nose. This will be an interesting show, I guess. There's nothing I could do about it. I apologize for the view. It's a good thing I'm wearing the glasses. It's a little bit less visible, but visible nonetheless. Jeez. They're trying to take me out, I think. I don't know. As usual, it's about 22 minutes into the show and it takes that long till we get through all that nonsense. Okay, I'm ready. The thing is to watch when the marshmallows start getting cooked on the fireplace. So I'm going to get into something that's a little bit serious in a sense of a lofty thing first, and see how, if any of this applies to the madness that's going on around the world and in Western nations and other places as well. There's so many things you can't talk about. In order for me to, I've built this studio setup, gone through the efforts of relighting my on-air light. That was a feat, trust me. Purchasing all of this solar equipment,
January 1st to 0, which is normal. Yesterday, the average wind speed was 11 miles per hour.
The NOAA radio that has a solar panel on it. See that solar panel? Reading light that you can emergency charge your cell phone with. All of this stuff. Self-chargeable, wind-up charge. Available on Great Solar stuff for like $35. You buy through Amazon. I get a commission. Maybe I make 40 cents or something. I don't know. Buck. You don't make much. Nobody's bought one yet. And I guess in many ways, I'm just talking to myself. But I'm talking to posterity. And I'm a man out of time. So maybe somehow this digital thing will make it into another alternative universe, a different dimension, another density of vibration, or some of these alien craft that seem, for some reason, the military keeps releasing pictures of. What's that all about? And why, where's the outrage that, in other words, they literally denied this for 80 years, something like that, close to 70 to 80 years. In other words, laughing at people, right? And now they're releasing this stuff right and left, saying, yeah, we've been observing this. These are not our craft. We don't believe they're crafts by other nations, and we've been observing this and people just, okay. It's just like, it's like MK Ultra, the mind control experiments, they declassify stuff. You go to CIA.gov and this stuff and there's things there declassified. Most people don't go. And the type of people who go, nobody watches or listens to them when they talk about it, And even though they may produce the document, why isn't this thing pouring right? It's a good thing I doubled the napkin. These ice cubes are going to fall out, whether I like it or not. So I don't advise you to try this technique. It's useless. And all I proceeded to do was make a mess. They've made eyes without a face permanent in some state in the Northwest so far. I'm sure there'll be more coming. I'm holding back on buying a new chair because if I get kicked off of this platform, it'll be a waste of money because I don't really use my computers the way I did years ago. Since I got rid of Adobe extortion monthly fee in order to use programs that I already owned, But you got to admit, it's a pretty neat getup, you've got the only thing that's kind of weird is this, which that's better. Yeah. Not much better. Yeah. Because you got Mulder's poster up there and you got the original Mac. And I don't know if you realize this, but it's a phone. 1960s dial phone. Which I wonder if it would look better lower, but there's not enough space. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of a regular looking guy. I have no idea. How could you have no views on videos? Or 2 views? Or like 14 views would be like a blockbuster to me. And I watch people do things. I talked about this yesterday, but I was in a more down. I'm not really, apart from this eye thing, I'm in a much better mood. The iconic me there, right? Which also, is tied into, which are kind of hidden back here too. So we might as well get everything. Let's improve this whole thing a lot, while we're live. Those are my CDs that I have for sale on Amazon. This is guys got 10 books, 50 songs, CDs for sale, shirts, everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. Game over. The iconic Tony Caravan Live, written up in magazines in the 90s as having the longest internet webcasts. People don't even know who I am. And to some people, I'm a legend. They refer to me as the legendary Tony Caravan in certain circles. That's the funniest thing about it. So you go from being a legend to...
We'll have to remodulate our signal to match the network's interlink frequency.
To that. All right, so Let's try to get in this thing. So I don't care about any of that. I'm going to do this because this is what I do. Somebody's got to do it. And like I said in the description, in the hope that one person it'll get through to one person, then I've served my purpose. Because that's part of life, is service to others as opposed to service to self. When we're younger, we're very self-centered people. Obviously a baby's, just wants, needs to be taken care of. And so everything revolves around that. And children are like that. Everything revolves around that. Mine. But, as you grow, assuming that you're not tossed off as an infant, a toddler, to some daycare so that you're raised by the state for your entire life. Think about that. Because our institutions today are basically the state. They may be privately run daycare centers or school systems, but in order to get their licenses, in order to stay open, they're required to meet, very stringent standards. And so in effect, it's no different than a public institution. Not really. It is and it isn't. But you're still sending your child off to the state. And so people go off, and put their infants, send them off to the state, and they're raised by the state, and they're indoctrinated. Parents don't know what's being done on a daily basis, the type of revisionist history, the books, revised fairy tales, stories that are anti, good, anti. In other words, they pick out, this movement today where everyone is bad somehow, and that we all need to repent, right? And that criminals are elevated. And what happens anyway? Their families end up getting millions of dollars. So weird. It's so weird. I can't take a break. The time it would take me to go upstairs to put eye drops in would be on a live broadcast would be, I don't know, almost 2 minutes, the way my structure, my house is. So anyway, people are raised by the state. They end up in school system, primary school systems, secondary school systems, and then, of course, the college institutions receive grants and funding and all this from organizations and foundations that have agendas. And those agendas match what I call the state. But the state, the nanny state, you hear that term. The state isn't the government. There is no government anymore. They use the word government, but it's this corporatocracy. It's basically a amalgamation of various corporations. And they keep merging, so that, and people share the board. Their boards of directors, the same people sit on multiple boards of directors of different corporations. So they're like all interrelated. And of course they follow, they go to Davos and have these planning meetings like the World Economic Forum. And they have an agenda and they decide on a particular course of action for the coming year and years. That's how, and like the UN is involved in this whole global governance idea. And that's how they came up with this agenda. Originally, it was Agenda 21 for the 21st century, but now it's Agenda 2030. They want to bring this in. We've got to bring this in. I hope I wasn't clicking. I don't know what that is. Just buy a brand new microphone and it clicks. So, that's the state. The state is the corporatocracy, So just because it's like anything else, they're owned. They're owned by the lobbyists. What are lobbyists? Lobbyists are employees of corporations. Corporations, acting in unison are the corporatocracy. The government is the corporatocracy. Judges are political appointees in most cases, except those that are elected. But those that are elected receive campaign contributions. So in effect, they're all paid by special interests, and they answer to those special interests. This is a generalization. All right. Are there exceptions to these rules? Yes. This is the way it is. And mostly it's mercenary. It's like I tell you about TV all the time. They're used car salesmen. They're drug salesmen. They're selling pharmaceuticals and cars. Turn on your TV, morning show, and what do you see? Car commercials. I was talking to my 87-year-old mother yesterday on the phone. I was trying to explain, got into this discussion briefly, but just it's frustrating for someone like her. So I probably shouldn't have even brought it up. But at least the car thing, she goes, yeah, you're right. I never realized that. You're right. It's all car commercials. But that's it. They're selling cars. They're selling pharmaceuticals, right? And then there's legal law commercials. It's your money. Yeah, of course it's your money. Well, it's not your money. It's nobody's money. It's not even real money. It's funny money. It's like that Bitcoin I just told you about. People just lost $13,000. If they would have bought Bitcoin at 62, thinking that it was going to go, because people were telling them it was going to go up to 100. Imagine some sucker bought a couple of Bitcoin, like 3 Bitcoin, say, for example, and just lost $40,000 in effect, right? $40,000 in my neighborhood, you could buy a good house, a better house, and you could live well. Excuse me. You can retire, basically. But, people don't think. So we're in this situation. And so I find myself a man out of time because I was aware of things when I was a child. I remember certain things. I remember how people lived and things that were interested to me, and I couldn't wait to grow up. Whereas now we have like a Peter Pan society where people in their 30s and 40s are acting like children. That's like, I call it the Peter Pan society. And the older people get, the more they want to look like they're young and act like kids. Not just be youthful or whatever. They literally want to act like kids. And the distortions of the faces of these people that get Botox and facelifts and all these things they do. It's crazy. But it's a Peter Pan culture, Peter Pan society. People are out of touch with reality. They're scared to death, I always keep the clip on here.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Well, we're beyond that point. I opened the show with the It's like you got this dying guy on on TV right now. Well, that's me. So, I mean, that's the backdrop of life today. You know, it's unreality reality. People don't want to accept. I mean, I wonder how many people, when they got their $1,400, had the wherewithal, particularly people like in Texas and places, Tornado Alley, or places where hurricanes have hit for decades upon decades. Has nothing to do with climate change. And where the power goes out, even in the northern latitudes where trees or power lines get iced over and they have power outages for days, if not weeks. I wonder how many people spent $199, or you could get one, you could spend more money and get a more, higher wattage version of something like this. It would have basically given them power through any kind of tragedy like that. I wonder how many people spent $35 that got something like this. See, remember, this light here is being powered by this thing. This watch back here, the Apple Watch thing. In a previous episode, there's USBs and plugins on. There's USBs. My hand goes that way because it's backwards. This camera is backwards. It's just YouTube. They got all these kids making all this money, and they get these interfaces. You can't, like I said, they can't even put up a picture. I should be able to hit a thing and put up picture in picture, and so I could show you something instead of me and have to go. And so when I go, let me check what Bitcoin is, you have to just take my word for it. We used to do these things in the 90s, 25 years ago. We had better computer, again, graphical user interfaces. They call it the GUI. There was better GUIs, better computers. They took less RAM, all right, less processing power. You had less memory because memory was expensive back then. But they did more. And you had cool software and cool control panels and all kinds of extensions and plugins and all kinds of crazy stuff. And there were and viruses and all this nefarious stuff that goes on, wasn't even happening. Spam didn't come along until, for a while. I used to have a thing. But, that's that. The past is the past. So I was thinking about this thing. I was watching some professors have a discussion the other day on YouTube. A long form discussion, a 2-hour discussion, because, some people have said, some criticism if I've talked to it, and I haven't talked to that many people. But, I have had one or two people say, I don't have time to watch a 2-hour thing. And I'm thinking well, I don't know. That's that's disrespectful to me, particularly if a family member or somebody like that says that. And B is well, what the heck are you doing with your time? So not only you send your children off to the nanny state, to be raised by the state straight through to the age of their 20s, right? Then you take some kind of corporate job or you get involved in some kind of business and you just work yourself to a bone till you get a heart attack or cancer and die, or diabetes or something like that. Heart disease, I should say, is still the number one leading cause of death. It killed more than that thing. All right. But the unspeakable, the thing that eyes without a face is, dealing with. Heart disease. Every year. Not just once and done. Though they're trying to make this eternal. How they're pulling that one off, I have no idea. Second in line is cancer. Every year, cancer kills about 600,000 people. I got cancer. I had to have an operation, a massive operation, and I have to be tested. And my next test is July. See if I'm going to live or whatever. It's ridiculous. Every year, right? Nobody cares. They haven't come up with any, it's the same old stuff. They just either cut people open or they dose them with radiation. They make more elaborate, expensive machines or different ways of putting things, but it's all either we're either going to like nuke you or cut you, right? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's the same with heart disease. And again, I've said this 1,000 times. When they did the lockdowns last year, what did they keep open? We'll allow people to have a pickup and delivery. Well, what type of places are you going to do pickups? Do you get pickup and delivery from? Artery clogging type of foods. See, so who benefited? The heart disease industry, right? People don't understand that. Big Pharma. The testing industry now is a $90 billion a year industry. I just got a thing from Walmart the other day saying you could buy self-test kits now. They're selling 2 for $19.98. Order now, right on the email. They just like, this is, they just found a new revenue stream because it's a corporatocracy. It's not a government. And yet people are glued to the television stations. They're just selling used cars and pharmaceuticals primarily. And, the occasional bling, bling, bright and shiny object, that kind of thing. You want to come up here, kitty cat? You want to come up and say hello to the people? No, you don't. But you make me feel like I'm I just live alone with a cat, and sometimes I feel like I'm not a good enough companion to the cat. I wouldn't mind having another cat for him to play with, perhaps. But I don't have a car. And when I do get visitors, it's too short a period of time. So I don't know. I don't have a time to go to. I don't even know where an animal shelter is or anything like that. So life is that. Come here. Come on, say hi. Come here. Come on up. You shouldn't run from me. We're the only 2 living creatures in this house other than the bugs. They've been working on the sewer lines, and I think they've been sending bugs into buildings. I've been seeing all these trucks, extermination trucks around the neighborhood. And I've seen some bugs. And believe me, I bought every kind of killer you could imagine, bug killer you could imagine. And
I'm a dead man if I don't get this out of my head.
If I can get it out.
How?
A cranial drill and a pair of forceps.
But yeah, so you got this nutty world. A real nutty world that we're in. I don't know if this thing should be like maybe like that. No. Can't tell what it is. But yeah, this is my set. This is my front room set. It's pretty neat, It's got all the stuff that I'm kind of doing. You know, I could play some great music. Would be a great radio. This is a full-blown radio station operation, but you can't. YouTube doesn't pay its royalties. You know, because quite frankly, what I'd like this morning show to be is like a morning show that would be maybe some little bit of talk, but me playing music, because I've got like 10,000 songs or more. And like I say, all the stuff that just makes it cool. I mean, I've got half this stuff I got from a friend of mine.
We're on a mission from God. Next time it may be different. You believe me, boy, there'll be a next time. You believe me, boy, there'll be a next time. It's gonna be fine.
Every day's a fun day. Like when I first made that snip, the day stayed on the end, but somehow at that time it played back, it was cut. So how do I weave this thing today together? And you're saying, well, what are you trying to weave? I'm trying to weave the concept of a world gone mad. All right. People who are irrational because they're the product of either the nanny state or propaganda media. They've been, just systematically bombarded day in, day out by something. I mean, like I said, I've got everyone from family, relatives to, friends. It's like hard to say, how do you have friends anymore? Because when you can't socialize, what is a friend? You see somebody for a short period of time, a real short period of time. You can't go to social, I mean, it's like they destroyed friendship. I mean, unless you live in a certain area, but most people don't. Most people are like, locked in what I call these virtual cages. I have a song, Virtual Cage, I do this all the time. Let me out of here. Let me out of here. Let me out of here. So they're in cubicles. So, it wasn't enough that they warehoused old people into these care facilities and basically just warehoused them. But now they're like warehousing the entire country. And that's that whole thing, like that's all we are. Cows, cattle. And it's pretty pathetic. So what is a friend? Somebody, you talk to them on the phone, maybe see them briefly. I don't know. So they're destroying the social fabric. I mean, this started with social media when people became more into like, I guess thumb chatting to their friends or their old friends, people they'll never see ever. You think about that's why I got off Facebook. I have a Facebook account and I post these videos to it. And, that's about it. I glance at it, to make sure it's up and, but I don't follow it. I can't, I don't have the time to. And it's like, these, I haven't seen, you get people from high school or distant family relatives that you'd love to see and talk to at like a family picnic gathering or something. But that you can't do that. It's against the law, number one. But number two, our society, we've all like kind of gone off everywhere too. That was another thing. I don't know if that was orchestrated or if that just happened, when towns, people just left towns because the way the job situation, they were trying to get people, I believe the original plan, and there's still some people that want to do that, part of these planners, Agenda 2030, that they want to have everybody in these centralized areas. Didn't work too well with New York. People are like leaving New York in droves. But it's this whole idea of central control, centralizing everything. They don't like us being out. Like I'm on the what you would call the outskirts of town. I'm in a neighborhood, but it's not center. It's not that this is a big city, but it is a city. There is a city. You got to drive to it though. I couldn't walk to the city. So I'm on the outskirts of town. It's a neighborhood incorporated into the city. At one time, this was a, flourishing neighborhood, but now it's not, it's just not that way. So you don't have that sense of community of neighborhoods anymore. Families have all, just gone, to the four winds, or whatever you want, the four north, south, east, west, whatever. Each to their own fate. That was the line in that movie Kroll that I used for the title card with that Cyclops. And he, it was something they would say. And he said it. Watch that movie. I could give you a good spoiler, but that was a key line in that movie. Each to their own fate. How white my teeth are. I don't do anything special. I just take care of myself. Same, my complexion is. You just eat healthy foods, and of course, whatever I did to my eye last night, in the middle of the night. So, this social distancing and tied in with social media. It's one of these other, it's like this weird concurrence, weird coincidences. And then at the same time, these people have been meeting annually and planning these things for decades. It just, and then you've got the nanny state and the corporatocracy in control. And it seems like everything is contrived and controlled. And then when you say that, they say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. And then the Navy starts releasing pictures of UFOs and stuff. And then, the biggest conspiracy theory of all time, right? The original, aluminum tinfoil hat conspiracy was the UFO thing. And so suddenly in the past couple of years, they're just, releasing and declassifying all these documents, videos, and photos and saying, well, yeah, we've been following this for, and with, no apologies, imagine people's lives ruined, people ridiculed, serious people. It's like, how do you believe that? It's like, goes back to the Vietnam War and the Gulf of Tonkin, right? When they admitted that they lied. And the same with the Iraqi war, when they admitted that there were no weapons of mass destruction. Right? I mean, the government, corporatocracy, the military industrial complex, like Eisenhower called it back in the early 60s. Like everything they've ever said has been proven to be a lie. They lie for a living. It's like that one movie. These people lie for a living. And yet, people still say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. I don't know, man. I just find it was very weird that, we were that there was a thing called Event 201, and then suddenly there was this thing that happened. I find it interesting that India is suffering very hard right now, but that they and the communist Chinese have been, kind of at, almost at war. So it's too many coincidences, is what I say. Everything seems to fit, work out just right for the corporatocracy, for them to profit. The key players seem to be doing just fine. Amazon and Walmart, didn't they do very well last year? They had their best years. These big corporations. Because that's what they want. They want you to sit in your cubicle and just do everything through this, right? How many companies have said, we're not going to return to, even if, because there isn't, but forget the even if, because there isn't if. Is there never, this is, forget it. But they're going to say, oh no, we're going to keep, you work for home for ad infinitum. We'll do this Zoom chat or whatever, Google Duo or, whatever the heck people want to use, Skype. And it gets back to what I was trying to say. You don't have 2 hours to watch a guy like me ramble on or something like that. And I'm saying, yeah, what are you really doing? So you waste all these years in schools where they're not teaching you anything. Like people come out and they have a degree and a finance and a debt to society, right? Some kind of ridiculous debt, 30,000, 50,000. I mean, some people have debts in the hundreds of thousands if they pursue certain professions. And so they have this, but the average person, the people who are in the tens of thousands of in debt, they have some kind of degree and some kind of thing that there's no purpose for, like no use for, no job for, right? And every day there's an announcement of a new thing that's, some algorithm, AI, robotic technology, automation, kiosk, etc., that is just taking the place of humans, right? So what are these people going to do? Well, we'll give them a guaranteed such and such income. I don't know. That's like, you keep here, that thing keeps popping up every now and then. And I guess the concept behind that, and that's this whole idea of the blockchain, like the central banks trying to, first it was fiat currency, which was funny money, right? We're at 38. It's either 28, I don't know, it's $30 trillion in debt or something the US is or something. It's an amount of money that's so large that it could never be paid off ever. You see? Because the tax revenues that come in are so small, and that there's interest on the debt, that you end up, the tax revenues barely cover the interest, so that this debt remains out there. So basically the country's bankrupt, if you have that much debt, you can't, you can never pay it off. So what do? I'm pouring my drink. They create funny money, and they create ledgers in the cloud. And they looked at Bitcoin and said, wow, that's cool. Bitcoin, it's money out of thin air, an algorithm, people solve an equation and you get a Bitcoin that's worth like now $49,000. Of course, countries like Chinese and stuff, they have like factories working on creating, and solving those equations, Bitcoin. And they're also trying to create their own digital currency, and they also have most of the world's gold. China is determined. The communist Chinese are determined to be the global power. And the corporatocracy seems to be saying, okay. But this idea about this thing they keep floating around about a guaranteed income, right? The rationale behind that's pretty simple. Okay, let's lock it. Excuse me. Let's create this. We have this social media network, right? So the only way to communicate is through computers. All right. We've got people locked down. All right. And we're going to keep them being locked down. Next year there'll be a new strain that'll be worse. The world population is approaching 8 billion people, and all these key players like Bill Gates and stuff, they're all depopulation guys. You could catch them on speeches doing this speech that they got to cut, got to get rid of people. They talk positively like it's a good thing. And so, so they'll unleash or create bioweapon, who knows, or allow a thing to happen. It's like the 911, thing, conspiracy theory. Those that, didn't think it was a plot basically said, well, they were aware of it and they just allowed it to happen because it fit. It was the thing they fit. Don't let a good crisis go to waste, and don't miss a good opportunity either. Forget about human life, because human life doesn't matter, because humans are just cattle to us. The people, the rulers, it's neo-feudalism. Let's get back to the old king system, where these people own all the land, right? Isn't that the one thing that came out of one of the World Economic Forum things? You will own nothing. They have a commercial. You will own nothing and you will be happy. It's this idea. You already see it here in the US. It's the cloud. If you want Adobe software, you pay them monthly. You don't own it anymore. You don't own the box, right? You have to pay monthly. And if you don't pay monthly, guess what? You can't use any of your files or anything you created, because now that it won't work. The software magically doesn't work. It's extortion. But everybody does it. Everything's the cloud. See, that's their system. They've got it all figured out. While people were just sitting around watching stupid TV, playing video games, watching sporting events, and all this other stuff, these planners, social engineers, they call them, because it's social engineering, were meeting and having PowerPoint presentations and Zoom and chat, Skype meetings, and figuring out all this stuff and getting together in Davos and putting together this plan. Agenda 21, now Agenda 2030. And they want to have it all figured out. So within the next 9 years. End of story. So this idea of giving people money it's like them. That's what this test was with the stimulus thing. They're saying, well, we'll just forget the debt. See, that's where the people who are like balanced budget type of people, and people who still believe that there are elected officials and politicians, that's where they're out of whack. They don't get it. There's no such thing as debt anymore. Not with the corporatocracy, who really is the government. Because the money, they just manufacture the money. They create it. they just say it's there. It's a ledger in the cloud. Everything's in the cloud. You know, I'm in the cloud right now, stuck in this like virtual world box. And so they looked at this, and so how's it going to work? Well, simple. Look at Amazon had its best year last year. Walmart, all these places. Target, that's the funniest one when people do stuff like that. Target basically is like what used to be like Kmart or something. I mean, the same kind of store, and then suddenly they turned it into, let's talk about it like Target. Not that I care about that. I mean, I go to Walmart. This drink, well, not this drink, but another drink I'll probably drink tomorrow, costs 79 cents for a 2-liter bottle at Walmart. I can't beat that. See, somebody was telling me they have 6-packs available for under $1 now of soda. But yeah, everything's fixed, man. Everything's been planned strategically. So their idea is that, yeah, maybe they will send people like $1,000 a month and have them, in their cubicles. And so that they will just, buy products and live like cattle. I mean, that's all. I mean, think of the farm. They did a show about that. You got cattle fenced in, right? So they're basically under lockdown. And you feed them, you give them some feed, various different things people feed cattle. And and then they either send them to the slaughterhouse if that's the type of cattle it is, or milk them daily if it's that particular type of, cattle, or breed them if that's that particular thing, whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and so these corporations, the corporatocracy keeps selling products from the cattle. And then when the cattle, when the people, and the people keep occupied through social media. And then systematically, they just keep trying to what they call cull the herd. They just allow these diseases and various things to come out to just keep, depopulating until that over time they get it down to a number that's more manageable for them. See, because right now the world's unmanageable to the corporatocracy. The people are fools. They don't understand it. They can't grasp that. There's a couple of thousand people who are basically ruling the world. It's like in the old king system. I've said this many times. The reason that the kings were so brutal, right, was because they realized that they were completely, totally outnumbered by the people they were ruling over. And they were doing horrible things. They were taking their food, taking their, women, taking their sons and forcing them into be soldiers in their armies. And so when anyone stepped out of line or the slightest bit even criticized, it's like today, they had to be made a spectacle of, basically, were brought out. And depending on what you did, it's like Henry Wall or William Wallace, you were, disemboweled in public or hung or beheaded or whatever. right now it's the same with social media is doing now, they're basically erasing people, destroying their lives. It's murder in a sense. If you take away somebody's livelihood, destroy their life because they disagreed with your ideology or questioned something, right? Like I said, they're already going after me with these, certain kind of claims. They make these claims against you that you violated a community rule of this place, of this being a safe space or something, right? Now, say that this was my livelihood. It's not, but for many people it was. And so just because that person had an idea or made a claim or a video, man, a video, a statement. What happened to freedom of speech and opinion? Somebody had basically had a disagreed with something. And they call it things like misinformation instead of just saying it was an opinion. But opinion is not misinformation. Opinion is an opinion. It's called the op-ed piece. They used to do it in newspapers all the time. They still do in some, right? Point, counterpoint. And that was the whole idea. That's social discourse, right? That, they used to do, to have debate clubs in high schools and colleges. I mean, I'm sure they still do. But the question is, you got to watch what you debate now. And you can't even debate as a mental or a thought experiment. There are many times that there used to be debates where people would take a side of a thing just for the sake of, like, it's like a thought experiment. It's like, what if? It's how scientists try to, when they're trying to prove a theorem, many times they try to disprove it. Okay, in order to see if it's valid. Let's find let's take this from every possible way to see if it holds up to to these criticisms, and that's the thing. So today, if I were to stand here and start criticizing and trying to poke holes at some, ideology that the mainstream social media, is adapted through via the corporatocracy, well, then I would just be kicked off and banned, censored, and erased. But in reality, that they should be encouraging that sort of thing. You see? Remember, we're not talking about like, somebody's, something off the wall or whatever. No, we're talking about some of the verbiage that they've put out is stuff like misinformation, or, it goes against, it being a safe space or something. Like, in other words, you triggered somebody on their censorship board, right? That's something only a very old person would understand. They used to have like censorship boards during the wars, to control, propaganda and stuff like that. And that's what they are now. They call them, they have different names for them now. A lot of them that are fact checkers are basically censorship boards. And in their terms of service, and the people who are in charge of these things are censorship boards. So that anyone that questions their viewpoint, but at the same time, they claim to not be publishers, or they should be immune from the First Amendment, but yet they, if you question their editorial policy, their there, then you are banished, right? So it's total hypocrisy, and it's totally obvious. And any kind of ACLU, if they like the old ACLU, not the new one, could easily win in a court case, but it's not even dared question because they're afraid. Everyone's afraid. Like I say, you're walking on eggshells. But they take some of these people that I've seen vanish for nothing more than just questioning something. You know, what's so wrong about questioning something? You know, that's how you find the truth. Does your truth hold up to someone else questioning it or pointing out a possible flaw in your truth, in what you are claiming to be the truth? And you're saying, no, you cannot question us. Certain things, you cannot question it whatsoever. If you do, we're going to destroy you and ban you and kill you. And you say, what do you mean kill you? Well, say this was my only source of revenue. All right. And you know, because they built these things. Remember, it was people like me, so to speak, that built these empires, right? You know, if there weren't people, there weren't content producers, none of these companies would exist. You know, would have never ever became multi-billion-dollar companies. Okay. This was content creators. They still call them that, right? So these content creators built these places. They, you know, were monetized in a way so it became a thing. So you created a community around the, you know, people basically made their living in this forum. And that was the company's plan, right? So now they say, "Oh, you question something. We've decided we're political now. We weren't in the early days. We were just a platform." See, in the early days, they were just a platform. All right. But now they're not platforms anymore. Now they're actually editorial ideologues. You know, they're companies that are pushing a particular, dogma. This is our, our terms of service go beyond, how, fair, things that are good and fair and legal and all that stuff. No, we're all about pushing a certain social agenda, political ideology, social, and if you go against that, right, then you're banned and you're destroyed. Well, what if someone has basically quit their job, made this life, and for the past several years, and bought equipment and stuff and has done this, their whole life's invested in it, and they decide to give you 3 strikes, you're out, you're done. And of course, you're in a lockdown. There's no jobs. There's not going to be any jobs. Where do you see the mass unemployment in the next 6 to 18 months? We'll be counting it into tens of millions. So what does that person do? Well, I'm on a fixed income right now because I'm retired. All right. And I have a cheap house. All right. I made plans. So I don't care. If they ban me, they ban me. I'm done. You ruined my life in one way, but I'll find something else to do. Okay. But I keep doing that. I think the eye is just watering and it's coming down my sinuses. But other people will, might just die. They can't get a job. They have no income. And who knows? There's 47,000 people committing suicide in the United States every year. They'll turn to some kind of drugs or something like that or whatever. Who knows? It's crazy. So they're, it's in effect, they're, not only just ruining a person's livelihood, right? But potentially, what's a person to do? Starve to death? Lose their house, lose their car, have their marriage break up, their kids, lose their kids and stuff. It's crazy. But that's kind of where it's headed. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that's where it's headed. They've already done that. And we don't know how, because I've watched a lot of people that I used to follow. They just disappeared. Like, I don't know where they are. And so I don't know. Maybe some of those people have killed themselves. Maybe some of those people are homeless now. I don't know. I got to go off the air I'm not off the air. This is going to be live, but I'm just going to take a break for a second. I'm going to deal with this thing. I'll be back. I'm returning. You don't know what you don't know. All right. The eye. I had to put some eye drops in. I feel much better. You still there? Yeah. So anyway, I would assume people would have the foresight to have fast forwarded during that 5-minute break or whatever it was. But yeah. So it's like I actually have. Yeah. In any event.
Let's get ready to rumble!
What I was going to talk about, and in this last half hour, I'm going to talk about that. So those who don't tune out, on the replay, that this is really a far out idea. And I'm going to continue this over the next couple of days because I'm tired of talking about the corporatocracy, quite frankly, but I just want to I keep hammering that because to understand that the world we live in is completely different than the world that's being presented to us. In other words, reality is not reality. And it's constantly being proven to us day after day. And they're fessing up, but they've got so many diversions out there. It's like that episode I had about roadside attractions, roadside distractions. There's so many distractions and so many things thrown up in front of people that they're not seeing in the aggregate how many lies and how many deceptions are being put before us, and how reality is just not what we think is real is just not real. It's not reality. And a guy like me who's been involved in all these things for so many years, and who is immune to their propaganda, always have been. Just sees this stuff clearly. Like I say, it's beyond being a man out of time. It's as if I try to describe this to people is that I see things, I see dead people. No, but it's like that. I see things that other people just don't seem to see. Now, I don't know why, and when I'm saying this I'm not talking some woo-woo thing here. I mean, it just seems it's very clear to me, that I could basically as somebody who studies human behavior, profiles people, right? Because pretty much, being a creative director of an advertising agency, being involved in media, excuse me, I'm trying this crappy chair. You're constantly dealing with something called demographic profiles because that's how you make your money. All right. I don't do that anymore. And I used to tell people even when they worked for me, I said, this isn't really a good business. Tell you right from the get-go. You're getting involved in something that's involved in manipulation. You're manipulating people that sell advertising, people that sell entertainment, media, publishing, all those things I've been involved in. It's all a form of manipulation, right? And, so being involved in that, but before I was involved in it, I always saw through it. And many people do. It's not like I'm unique. But, some of the people who do that stuff, it's like knowing the rules of the game or the code behind, behind a game or a web page or anything. It's if you know how it works, you see, you see beyond it, you see through it, you see what's going on. It's obvious to you where someone else just takes it on face value. So they don't understand. When I criticize social media and I talk about, social engineering, I won't even get it. Another geoengineering, that's a whole other thing they're into. That's what this climate thing is. It's stands right out to me. It's not. So that's what I talk about. But, and that's how I'm, in many ways, I'm a man out of time, or just don't fit in with this culture right now, because I'm not part of this Peter Pan culture. I'm not part of, I don't, the things don't work on me. You know, it's like, you know, I guess maybe in a sci-fi movie or in some kind of film, you know, where, you know, everybody's like been given a drug, and so they respond a certain way, but one person is immune to it, you know, and that's what it is. It's like I'm just immune to their indoctrination. I'm immune to their conditioning. I'm immune to their propaganda. Partially because I've worked in these industries and I know the techniques that they're using. So they just, you know, they're obvious to me. But also just because that's the nature of the way my bioelectrical brain works, you know, the way I'm wired. You know, we're androids in effect. You know, we're machines. Anybody who's had an operation, spent as much time in hospitals as I have, talked with surgeons, good surgeons. I mean, the human body's a machine, man. You could believe whatever you want to on how, you know, how it came into being, whether it was created by God or, you know, cosmic rays caused mutations, you know, of some kind of hominid, right? Homo sapiens became Homo sapiens sapiens, or whatever you want to believe. Okay. That doesn't matter. It still comes back to what I'm about to say, is that and this is going to seem like I'm like, you know, suddenly just made a hairpin turn. It comes down to consciousness. So my consciousness, which is detached, there's a thing called the hard problem of consciousness, which I talk about or refer to in my book Codex. And this is you know, this is at the forefront of people who study the human brain right now. This is a contemporary topic. All right. It's an area that many people are working on. The hard problem of consciousness. Where does consciousness come from? Serious scientists, serious people who, neuroscientists, people who study the brain. I mean, they've got ideas, and there's little, you know, all kinds of things floating around, explanations by certain people, but there's no, you know, there's no unifying theory. There's no accepted scientific answer for where does consciousness come from? How do you see yourself as you in the first person subjectively, right? How do these senses in his bioelectric brain in his body, you know, what's the connection with consciousness, you know, and all that, and what is consciousness, type of thing. And you know, I've heard some interesting ideas about it. I lean towards the idea that consciousness, that which makes up consciousness, is actually likened to a particle, you know, like a photon, or, you know, or some kind of, or a wave, or, you know, some kind of atomic, you know, microscopic particle, say. You know, one of these things that they try smashing together in the Great Hadron Collider type of thing, you know. But that because consciousness is kind of has been considered almost metaphysical, because another word for consciousness could well be your soul, okay, or a new age spirit kind of idea. But we all know we have consciousness, all right, at least most of us. I mean, there's a lot of these zombie-like people walking around out there that are, you know, they just seem to be bioelectrically run machines. But that's for another time. I just want to get through this in the last 20 minutes or so. We'll continue this topic. I'm going to be moving more into these sorts of things anyway. And so, what if you consider consciousness as being, so God, the God consciousness, the source, the, you know, the be all, end all, you know, infinite thing, okay? And like I said, it's not getting into a religious, you know, discussion here. You know, this is, you know, that's, you know, all these things tie together. That's the thing about it. I was trying to explain to somebody the other day. I was saying, you know, science is more moving into proving, you know, is merging with, you know, some of the, you know, ancient religious beliefs of sorts than ever before in history, because it's starting to realize, you know, the things that have been written about and said, you know, not in entirety, but the portions of these things are starting to now become very clear in a scientific manner. So what I'm posing is that consciousness is actually a thing. It is likened to a particle, and that there is, you know, there may well be consciousness and matter. Some believe consciousness brings into being matter. The word was made flesh type of thing in a religious context there. But that perhaps there is consciousness and matter. And there's more to the world than we see, right? We only see what we want to see. But at the same time, I've also been thinking lately about the path of least resistance. So whereas people talk about the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio and all those sorts of things, and how plants grow and people grow and things, the similarities of certain things, right? And they try to put that up to some sort of mathematical golden ratio of sorts, which goes back way thousands of years. That maybe in reality what happens is, what's occurring is that life or consciousness or both just pursue the path of least resistance, and that path of least resistance appears or has been defined as being a certain thing, right? But in reality, we pursue the path of least resistance. What's the path of least resistance? It's like water, you know, going downhill. All right. And, you know, it hits a rock, then it just it goes around the rock. It will travel the path of least resistance. And I think in many ways, the reason I'm tying this, how that you say, well, what does this have to do with your earlier discussion? Is that this is kind of the technique. This is like advanced mind control technique kind of thing. But what's happening is that people are falling for and are responding to the path of least resistance. I look down for the cat, you know, sometimes it's brushed against my leg or something. And so if you're a social engineer, a propagandist, someone involved in indoctrination, mind control. See, there's all these words, but see, saying something like social engineering sounds a lot nicer, right? Or conditioning, right? Or curriculum, right? But if you're involved in that type of thing, social engineering, indoctrination, propaganda, mind control, you want to have people that you're trying to manipulate and control. You want to have it set up so that it's kind of the word natural almost, and that means pursuing or following the path of least resistance. So there's no obstacles or anything that is going to block or get in the way of, right? It's forward motion, or it's whatever motion, wherever it's momentum is a better word. And that's what's happening right now in by these social engineers and what's happening around the world. And it seems to be a world gone mad because people are following this, have been conditioned to follow this path of least resistance. And they've taken all the obstacles out of the way. But in effect, by so-called taking obstacles out of the way, in many ways they are deceiving and put distractions and manipulating. So you're being channeled and into a certain for a certain outcome. And a lot of people don't see that, like they don't grasp that. And that's and if those who fast forwarded while I took that 5-minute break or 3-minute break, whatever it took to go upstairs, put some eye drops in and stuff, I feel much better having done that. So I just either close the video off, but I had this note, so I wanted to finish off on this, and we'll cover this more in the coming days. So, just to kind of review that, because it is kind of heavy. So the idea is that imagine ultimate awareness or consciousness. First of all, life, people are confused. What is life all about? What's the secret to life? All that stuff. Life is, it's simple. You got senses and that experience, what your reality is. And so the purpose of life is just to experience. So if you're not experiencing life, you're missing out. And so these powers that be, the corporatocracy and stuff, they're limiting your senses, right? Your skin is your biggest organ and the most sensitive, right? So it's like you can't get close to people. Social distance. I'm sure many people are afraid to kiss somebody, right? When they do get together, like just a casual kissing, right? I mean, I used to like to kiss people. I was a kisser, so if somebody, say some girl comes down and we're having a few cocktails and we're drinking, it'd be like, okay, let's make out for, just to have a quick little makeout session, whammy kiss. And then just get back to listening to music, playing darts, drinking. It wasn't like it's going to necessarily even lead to, sex, just kissing. It's like I talked about, St. Patrick's Day, kiss me, I'm Irish type of thing. You just kiss, you just kiss people. A kiss is a kiss, right? You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. And so I bet you there's a lot of people just afraid to kiss. Just friendly kiss. I'm talking about friendly kiss. Let alone, full-blown body to body, sensual experience, right? Social distance. And so we use, despite the fact that I got this scratched my eye last night. I mean, it happens. People don't get crazy about it. That's why I've turned off chat and comments, because I don't want people trying to say, well, you need this, or you should go to the emergency room. It's like, I know what's going on, besides the doctor next door to me. But, you see through a lens. You hear through headphones, earbuds, speakers, right? Do you smell anything, really, when you're social distancing? So in other words, they're closing life. The purpose of life is to experience the full beauty of life, the sunsets, the sunrises, the whatever, to feel the sun on your body. I can't wait. But next week is supposed to have some days in the 70s or whatever, sunny and 70. I'm going to be out in my backyard because I garden, but I'm also going to be on my lounge chair, which is with as much skin exposed as possible, letting that feeling the sun and that vitamin D, beating down on me and getting a suntan. All right. That's part of what life's all about. And I'll be listening to some of my favorite music because I've got outdoor speakers back there in my yard. And I'll come in as my garden grows and I grow my own fresh veggies and stuff. I'll be eating those and having that flavor explosion in my mouth. I'll be smelling the fresh air in my yard, and I'll be listening to not only music, but I have a bird feeder, the sounds of nature and all that kind of stuff. A full-blown, sensual experience, which is what we are, because otherwise we'd be earthworms, right? That's what I try to tell people. It's Occam's razor. You just look at a human being. Well, what's it all about? Well, look at another human being. You've got senses, and the idea is for you to. The purpose of life is to experience the world, in its full splendor and glory. And to socially interact with other people, because these senses are designed to interact with people. We fit together. And so these powers that be are trying to limit our senses and artificialize everything, put something in between it to dull it in a sense. And people will say, no, you're wrong. You put a VR set on, they're enhancing things. And I'm going, no. Watch my video where I talked about that time I pulled over the side of the road and I watched a sunset, a desert, a thunderstorm, and a rainbow in the 360 degrees. I turned around and I was right in the middle of it with that full immersion in reality, the real world. See, people don't do that today because they don't have the opportunities to. They live in cubicles, and then they work and they go in a car, which is another cubicle, and then they go to work in another cubicle. And I don't care whether it's just a little work office, cubicle, or you have a big office with a window overlooking Manhattan skyline. It's still, in. We're not really experiencing the world. We're not fully immersed. And now we're afraid of germs, so we're afraid of other people and, this, that, the other. Years ago, it was like they were trying to tell people the sun will give you cancer and stuff. I got to watch that. Well, maybe it will. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to give medical misinformation. But the point is, sun also gives you vitamin D. Kills germs and viruses and stuff on contact. That's a fact. All right. So the idea is that one way or another, you have consciousness, and consciousness is independent of your corporeal body, bioelectric brain, but it's tied into that experiential nature of the interconnection of consciousness and these vessels. But your consciousness is immortal, and your consciousness is a part of a greater consciousness, and some people call that greater consciousness God. Okay, the source of all. And everything in effect has some side of, consciousness may well be, we just haven't examined it properly. Excuse me. And have seen it in sense of defining consciousness the way we define other particles or other things, using the word things and stuff as scientific words, not as silly words. I know people looking at me are thinking, man, this guy's dying. He might have the plague. No, like I said, I must have scratched my eye, and I don't know, it's running and it's causing my nose to run. And my voice is always talking for 2 hours, always gives you a little bit of that kind of thing. It's part of my nature. So that's basically kind of what I really wanted to talk about today. And this idea of them.
This is Metropolitan Police speaking. Metropolitan Police speaking. All persons are warned to stay off the streets. All persons are warned to stay off the streets.
Your papers, please.
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
All of that nonsense, to me is.
I think all three of you popped your stoppers.
It's just craziness. And so I'm going to explore this over the next, unless they knock me out because, he's talking about stuff that's too heavy and maybe we could be misconstrued into being this. Well, I'll still make videos. TonyCaravanLive.com. I'm on Locals. I have a local community page. And I have Great Solar Stuff where I have all this great solar stuff, which you should get. And I could always post these videos that I make. There are other source areas. So if you like what I'm saying, if you've discovered this thing, it's going to just get better and better. I didn't waste my time creating this set and getting all these things working and having all this kind of stuff together, right?
The only station that matters.
Yeah, this is the only station that matters. And it's going to get better and better and better with time. And so let's get through this thing together and figure a way, to live life and experience life to the fullest, And that's what it's all about. Life is an experience, and you want to experience life to the fullest. So until next time, thanks for watching. Sorry for the break. Sorry for the eye thing and the handkerchief and all that stuff. These things happen. But I highly recommend you to go to greatsolarstuff.com. I highly recommend you to buy my book, Codex. I've got some CDs, 50 songs available. My books are available on Amazon. You can buy it. My music, you can go to iTunes. It's available through iTunes. You can, wherever music or books are sold, I've all gone through the proper channels for everything. It's not like I'm some nobody. If you're a radio station, you could play my songs on the air. I'm registered with BMI. And so anyway, I think I have some information to share that will be helpful, informative. And even though I'm a man out of time, like I say, you could take that in different ways. And I seem to be, it's the benefit that I am that might help you. So, and as you can see, that light stayed on through this for 2 hours. So imagine if it was a power down situation because of a storm or whatever, that, you'd be able to be charging your cell phone. If it was nighttime, you'd have light on. You know, if you had this little companion piece to go with it, the NOAA radio, you'd be able to hear what's going on. There's AM FM radio on there too. There's a reading light when you pick up this little thing here. See how that light just like came up? There's a reading light there. There's a flashlight. You can also emergency charge a device with that. I mean, you could run a laptop on this thing, you know, use your cell phone as a hotspot or something like that. I mean, it'd be like nothing happened, you know, and your neighbors would be like all in a panic and stuff like that. Anyway, that's that. I'm Tony Caravan. This is Tony Caravan Live. I have a locals community channels at TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. My website is TonyCaravanLive.com. Also rockflux.com. This YouTube channel is called Rockflux. And I have a site, Great Solar Stuff, where I've got some stuff that I test live here and demonstrate live here every day, every time I'm on the air practically. So check it out. And I've got music to listen to, 50 beat poetry tracks, and over 10 books I've done. And yeah, that's that. Cheers, peace, and all that good stuff. Have a great rest of your weekend. I'll talk to you probably tomorrow.